Ronan Vale tightened his grip on the brass handle of the guest's designer luggage, praying the woman in red stilettos wouldn't recognize him. She didn't. Instead, she breezed right past him, her perfume trailing like a challenge. Her long dark hair swung with every step, the silk of her white blouse catching the chandelier light of the Halston Grand Hotel lobby. Ronan kept his head down, the cap of his Bellhop uniform shading his face just enough. He'd built Vale Enterprises from the ground up: real estate, private equity, and tech investments that had made him a billionaire before 35. But after a headline scandal involving his CFO and a $1 billion embezzlement scheme, he'd vanished from the public eye. He didn't trust anyone now. Not his board, not his so-called friends, so he did something no one would expect. He bought the hotel and took a job inside it as a bellhop. He needed to see the world without the lens of wealth for once. No assistants, no meetings, just simplicity, but no part of him was prepared for her. "Room 1223, the woman murmured to the front desk clerk, her voice soft but steady. Ronan caught the name on the ID she handed over. Arielle Hayes. He swallowed. "Let me take your bags, Miss Hayes," he said, his voice lower than usual. He wasn't trying to disguise it. But he also wasn't trying to be recognized. She glanced at him finally, hazel eyes meeting his. Something flickered their suspicion, a memory, but she nodded. "Thanks." In the elevator, silence stretched between them. She looked like someone who belonged to penthouse parties and private jets. But there was something tired in her eyes, something that didn't match the rest of her polished look. "You here for business or vacation?" he asked, trying not to sound too curious. "Neither," she said flatly. "Just needed to get away." He pressed the button for the 12th floor. "Sounds like a story." She gave a dry laugh. "Don't they all?" They walked down the hall together, his steps careful so the wheels of her suitcase didn't bump too loudly. When they reached her room, she pulled out the key card, but before she slid it through, she turned toward him. "You remind me of someone," she said slowly. "Do I? A guy I saw on TV once. A billionaire, actually, but you're probably just taller." He froze, then forced a chuckle. "Wish I had his bank account." She gave him a look, half amused, half curious. "Right." He stepped back. "Enjoy your stay, Miss Hayes." But she didn't go inside right away. "You didn't ask for a tip." "I didn't bring you up here for one." She tilted her head. "Maybe not, but take it anyway." She reached into her bag and handed him a 20, "and thank you for not asking questions." That night, Ronan lay on the cot in the staff quarters 2 floors below the ballroom, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Not just the way she looked, but the sadness she tried to hide, the way she noticed him, even when she wasn't supposed to. The next day, he saw her again in the cafe downstairs. She had her laptop open, coffee half drunk, but she was staring out the window instead of working. He grabbed a tray and walked past her table like he was just bussing it. "You're not very good at being invisible," she said without looking at him. He stopped. "Excuse me? You keep circling the room like you're casing it. You're either a terrible waiter or a really bad spy," he laughed. "Maybe I just like the view." She looked at him then, raising a brow. "Of me or the city?" "Both," she smiled, just barely. "Okay, sit then, but if you're going to flirt, at least bring me a croissant." He sat, and brought her two. They talked for hours, about nothing and everything. She told him her father had passed away 2 months ago, and her fiancé had dumped her 3 weeks later. She was supposed to be planning a wedding right now, but instead she'd packed a bag and flown to a city she'd never been to just to breathe. He didn't tell her who he really was. He told her he was Ron, a guy who worked at the hotel, a simple guy. "I like that you don't try too hard," she said after he walked her to the elevator that night. "You're easy to be around." He looked at her, her face half lit by the elevator's glow. "You're easy to care about," she blinked. "That's dangerous, I know." But he meant it. The next few days blurred into each other. Breakfasts turned into walks. Walks turned into dinners. Not at 5-star restaurants yet, but on the rooftop garden of the hotel, eating takeout under fairy lights he'd hung when she wasn't looking. "You're different," she whispered one night as they sat together beneath the stars. "Different how?" You look at me like I'm not broken." He reached for her hand. "Because you're not." Their first kiss happened the next morning when she caught him off guard in the staff hallway near the laundry room. He was carrying towels. She was looking for the gym. They collided, breathless. "I should go," she said, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. "You don't have to," so she didn't. The kiss was messy and rushed and perfect. She pulled away first. "I never do things like this," she whispered. "I never feel things like this," he said back, "but secrets don't stay buried forever." 3 days later, she walked into the hotel bar and everything shattered. He'd been pulled into a meeting with the hotel's head of operations, who had no idea Ronan was the owner. It got loud, heated. Ronan lost his temper just for a second and said something he shouldn't have. "You think I don't know how to run my own damn hotel?" Arielle was across the room. Her glass slipped from her fingers. He turned. Too late, she was already walking away. He chased her through the lobby past confused guests and stunned staff. "Arielle, wait," she spun around. "Your hotel," he nodded, breath ragged. "Yes, I didn't tell you because you lied. I just didn't want you to see the money first." Her voice cracked. "You think I care about your money? What was I supposed to do? Every woman I've ever dated saw a number before they saw me. But you were different." She stared at him, eyes filled with tears. "You made me fall for someone who doesn't exist." "No," he said fiercely. "I made you fall for the real me, the guy who carried your bags, the guy who kissed you on the roof. That's who I am, not the suits. Not the headlines." She shook her head. "I need to think." He watched her go, and for the first time in years, Ronan Vale had no idea how to fix something, not with power, not with money, because this time his heart was the thing on the line. Ronan hadn't stepped into the penthouse suite since he bought the Halston Grand. Now, he stood in its vast silence, the city glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. He hadn't come here for the view. He came to remember what it felt like to be alone at the top. It was strangely easy to forget after Arielle. He'd asked the concierge to check her out of the hotel. She hadn't. Her room key was still active, her name still listed on the guest ledger. But she hadn't answered his call when he tried just once, and he wasn't going to chase her with more. He didn't deserve to. A knock at the penthouse door startled him. No one knocked up here. The staff had standing orders never to disturb him unless summoned. He opened the door. It was his assistant, Miles, out of breath, holding a manila envelope. "I told the front desk I'd deliver it myself," Miles said, stepping inside. "You weren't answering your phone." "I turned it off." Miles paused. "You all right?" Ronan took the envelope. "What is it?" "Background check you asked for." "On the woman in 1223. Ronan's grip tightened, then loosened. "You opened it?" "No, I figured if you wanted details, you'd tell me when you were ready. But I will say this, whatever's going on with her, it's got you pacing like a man who just lost a merger." Ronan didn't answer. When Miles left, he tossed the envelope on the marble counter and walked away. He didn't want the past to define her. He hadn't asked for it to judge her, only to protect himself. But now, the idea of opening it made his stomach turn. Instead, he stepped into the elevator and went down. He didn't go to her room. He didn't know if he had the right anymore. But he found himself in the rooftop garden, the one he'd lit up for her only nights ago. The fairy lights were still strung, swaying in the soft breeze. He sat on the bench where they'd once shared strawberry shortcake from a paper box and let the silence wrap around him. Then he saw her, across the garden, standing near the railing, looking out over the skyline. "Arielle," he said, barely audible. She didn't turn. "I didn't expect you up here," she said after a moment. "I couldn't sleep." "Neither could I." He walked to her slowly, careful not to stand too close. "I didn't want you to find out that way. You had weeks to tell me, I know." She turned then. Her eyes were dry now, but her expression was unreadable. "I keep wondering if anything you said was real, if any moment wasn't part of some elaborate game." He shook his head. "There was never a game, not with you. But there was a lie. I didn't tell you the whole truth." "That's not the same." Her gaze dropped to the ground between them. "It feels the same. I was afraid. Every woman I've dated since college had an agenda. I got used to being suspicious. I'm not them." I know that now. She looked up sharply. Do you? Because you kept pretending. Even when I opened up to you, you let me think you were someone else because it made you feel safer. But what about me? I never thought I'd feel anything for you, he said quietly. I thought I was just buying time until the press stopped circling. I didn't plan for this, neither did I. They stood in silence, wind tugging at the hem of her coat. Did it mean anything to you? He asked. Her throat moved like she was swallowing something sharp. Of course it did. That's what makes it worse. I want to fix it. You can't undo lying to someone about who you are. I can show you who I am now. She laughed once bitterly. A billionaire in disguise, that's not exactly a relatable premise. He took a step closer. No. But the man who kissed you in the laundry hallway, the one who made you laugh with badly cut fruit and tried to learn your favorite poet, that man is real, the rest is just noise. She looked at him for a long time. Then prove it. How? Be honest with me, from here on out. No more hiding. No more games, he nodded. Deal. She hesitated. Then she said, I'm not going back to that room. You want another? I want to leave the hotel. I only stayed because I didn't know where else to go, he hesitated. Come to my place, she blinked. That's a terrible idea. I won't try anything. I just want to show you I'm not afraid of being seen. I don't need a penthouse tour. It's not a tour, it's a clean slate. She studied him, hesitant but curious. Fine, one night, and I'm not changing my mind about anything. I still don't know if I can trust you. I'll earn it. Later that evening, the car he sent picked her up at the back entrance of the hotel. No cameras, no public entrances. Her suitcase was already packed by the staff per her instructions and waiting in the trunk. When she stepped into his penthouse, she froze. The space was sleek, modern, but warm. Dark wood floors, navy velvet sofas, a glass fireplace flickering quietly, paintings that didn't try too hard to impress. Books piled beside the bar. You live here alone? She asked. Yes. Feels lonely? It was. He led her to the guest room. She paused in the doorway. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. She stepped inside and ran her hand across the edge of the dresser. It smells like cedar. I had them change the sheets this morning. She turned. You were hoping I'd say yes. I never stopped hoping. That night they didn't talk much. She closed her door, he respected it, but sleep came harder than ever. He kept hearing her voice in his head, not angry, just sad. The next morning he made breakfast, not catered, not ordered in. He cooked. When she walked into the kitchen, barefoot, hair pulled into a loose twist, she looked surprised. Is that real food? Omelets and toast, but I burned the first batch. She sat at the counter. You don't strike me as a man who cooks. I had to learn. Being rich doesn't mean you can't use a stove. Doesn't mean you will either. He slid her plate in front of her. She took a bite, chewed, then nodded slowly. Not bad, he grinned. High praise. After breakfast, she walked to the window overlooking the city. He followed, silent. My mother used to say the higher you go, the more you see, she said softly. But she never warned me how dizzy it would feel. Do you regret coming up here? She looked at him, eyes clear now. No, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the unopened envelope he'd carried from the penthouse. I had someone look into you, he admitted, before I knew how I felt, before any of this. She stared at the envelope. Did you rate it? No. Why tell me? Because honesty starts now. She took the envelope, walked to the fireplace, and dropped it in. The flames caught quickly. Then I guess we're even, she said. He exhaled. Later that day, they walked through the Vale Gallery, a private collection open to the public only twice a year. He hadn't planned to take her there. But she asked about the art, and he wanted to show her what mattered to him beyond assets and numbers. This one, he said, pointing to a painting of a storm-tossed sea, was the first thing I bought after my father died. She looked at it for a long time. Why this? Because it reminded me that even chaos has rhythm. You just have to survive the waves. She reached for his hand. It was the first time she touched him since everything fell apart. I'm not promising anything, she said. You don't have to, but I'm not running either. He turned to her, heart pounding. That's all I ask. They stood there in silence, surrounded by color, by brushstrokes that told stories, by the quiet beginning of something that might just matter. Neither of them said the word love, not yet. But something had shifted, not in grand declarations, but in the choice to stay. Arielle stood at the edge of the glass balcony, her hands curled around the cool railing. Below them, the city pulsed with life traffic threading through avenues, lights blinking across rooftops like a heartbeat. But up here, it was quiet, the kind of quiet that only came at a dangerous height. Ronan leaned against the doorframe behind her, arms folded, watching her. She hadn't spoken much since they left the gallery, not because she was angry. She wasn't, but something had shifted in her, a stillness, maybe. Or a question she hadn't asked yet. He stepped forward, slow enough not to startle her. "You're thinking hard," he said. "I didn't expect your life to feel so. Lived in," she replied, still facing the skyline. "I thought it would be sterile, empty. But it's not. I didn't build all this for guests." She glanced over her shoulder. "Then who did you build it for?" He hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe I thought if I filled the silence with enough things, I wouldn't hear the parts I didn't want to face." Arielle turned to face him fully, her expression unreadable. "What parts?" He walked closer, one careful step at a time, until they were shoulder to shoulder. "That I've never really belonged anywhere, not before the money, not after it." "I don't know if anyone does," she said, softer now. He looked at her. "You seem like someone who did, at least once." "I did," she admitted. "There was a house in upstate New York. Big porch, chipped paint, always smelled like lavender. My dad built it when my mom got sick. Said if she had to die, he wanted her to die surrounded by beauty, and after she was gone, he made it our little fortress. You don't live there now," she shook her head. "Sold it when he passed. I couldn't keep it up, not on a teacher's salary. The new owners tore down the porch, rebuilt it in stone. It doesn't feel like mine anymore." Ronan didn't fill the silence that followed. He let it stretch, let it settle between them like fog. "I haven't told anyone that," she added after a moment. "Not even my closest friends." "Why me?" "Because you listened. Even when you were lying, you listened." He looked at her then, really looked. "If I asked you something personal, would you answer honestly, as long as you do the same?" He nodded once. "Why did you say yes to coming here?" "After everything," she looked down at her hands. "Because I didn't want to wonder. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life asking what if. And because it hurt more to imagine leaving you behind than it did to risk finding out you weren't worth staying for." His throat tightened, but he said nothing. "Not yet." She glanced up. "Your turn." He didn't hesitate. "I asked you here because I've never met anyone who made me want to stop running. And I've been running a very long time." She stared at him, her gaze steady. "Then stop." That night, they didn't sleep in separate rooms. He didn't touch her, not at first. He simply held her the way someone would hold a memory they didn't want to lose. They lay tangled in silence, her head on his chest, his hand on her back, and for once it was enough. In the morning, Arielle woke to the sound of piano music drifting down the hallway, soft, unpolished, but heartfelt. She pulled on one of his shirts and padded barefoot toward the sound. Ronan sat at the baby grand in the living room, his fingers moving slowly across the keys. He wasn't good. He missed notes, hesitated between chords, but he didn't stop playing. She leaned against the doorway. "You play?" "Barely," he said, not looking up. "My mother made me take lessons when I was a kid, said every man should know how to create something beautiful." "Did she?" "She died before I got good at it." Arielle walked over and sat beside him on the bench. "Keep going." He glanced at her. "You sure?" "I like hearing you try." He played a few more notes, then turned to her. "You could stay here if you wanted." She raised an eyebrow. "Temporarily or not? That's a big shift." "I've never made room for someone before, but I'm trying." "Starting with you." She studied him, the way his jaw tensed when he tried to seem casual, the way his fingers hovered above the keys like they were afraid to land. "Do you always go all in when you decide something?" "Only when it matters." She reached out, pressed a single key. "Then let's take it slow." His mouth curved into something quiet. "Okay." That afternoon, Ronan took her to a property on the edge of the Hudson, a long stretch of water facing land with an old stone house at its center. The kind of place few people ever saw, let alone stepped foot in. "This was my first big personal buy," he explained as they walked the gravel path toward the front door. I never lived here, just kept it in case I ever needed to breathe. Arielle trailed her fingers along the ivy-covered stone wall. It's beautiful. I thought it might be yours. She stopped walking. What? I had the deed transferred this morning. It's in your name. She turned slowly. Ronan, you can't just give someone a house. I can, and I did. Her voice dropped. That's not something you do for someone you're just dating. I'm not just dating you. She stared at him, stunned. I haven't even decided if we work yet. I know, and I'm not asking for anything back. I just want you to have a place that's yours, a place that feels like that porch in New York. You said it was taken from you. Let me give it back. She took a shaky breath. This is a lot. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I just don't want you to think I see you as temporary. She looked at the house again. The windows were old but clean, the garden wild but alive. It looked like possibility. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Just look. So she did. They spent the rest of the afternoon wandering the house, tracing the bookshelves, exploring the attic with its dust-covered trunks, opening windows to let the spring air in. She found an old rocking chair in the sunroom and claimed it instantly. He found a cracked record player in the basement and promised to get it fixed. By sundown, the place felt different, less like a stranger's house, more like something waiting to be claimed. On the drive back, Arielle turned to him. I'm still not sure I'm ready for all of this. I'll wait. She tilted her head. Even if I never get there, I'll still wait. She closed her eyes for a moment. You're not who I expected. Neither are you. Back in the city, as the elevator rose toward the penthouse, she leaned into his side, her hand finding his without words. Tomorrow, she said, I'm going to call the school. Let them know I won't be coming back this semester. You're staying. I'm not saying forever, but I'm saying longer than I planned. He squeezed her hand. Neither of them said the words yet, but the direction was clear. They weren't falling anymore, they were choosing. Rain streaked the penthouse windows in silver threads, washing the city in blurred light. Arielle stood barefoot in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, chopping herbs in a quiet rhythm. The smell of garlic and rosemary clung to the air. She hummed under her breath something simple and tuneless until Ronan emerged from the hallway, his tie loosened, hair still damp from a shower. You're cooking, he said, leaning on the counter, surprised. She didn't look up. You keep feeding me steak and soufflé. I needed something real, he grinned. Are you saying my chef is too good? I'm saying you need more lentils in your life. He reached across the counter and stole a slice of carrot from the cutting board. Hey, she protested, smacking his hand with the back of the knife, not hard, just enough to make him laugh. I miss this, he said. What, being assaulted in your own kitchen? No. Watching you take over my space like you've always belonged here. She paused for a second, then went back to chopping. I'm not trying to take over, I know. That's why it works. Later, they ate on the floor, cushions pulled from the couch, plates resting on a wooden crate Arielle had dragged in from the balcony. The rain had turned heavier, drums of water tapping the glass, but the city below glowed golden. Ronan poured her wine, then poured his own, less than usual. She noticed. You always drink less when you're nervous, she said. He didn't deny it. I've been thinking, that sounds dangerous. I want to take you somewhere. She raised a brow. We're already in a penthouse with a skyline view and a personal chef. Where exactly do we go from here? Somewhere no one knows me, or you, a place we can just exist. She tapped her glass against his. You're talking about escape. I'm talking about freedom. Where? He took a folded brochure from behind his back and slid it across the crate. It was creased, worn, clearly handled a dozen times. On the cover was a photo of a small village on the Amalfi Coast, stone steps, lemon groves, boats bobbing in a quiet bay. I bought a house there years ago, he said. Haven't been back since. You want me to go to Italy with you, just us. No headlines, no staff, no pasts. She leaned back. What's the catch? There isn't one. You're really bad at pretending you don't want something. I don't want anything from you that you're not ready to give. She looked down at the brochure, her fingers brushing the edge. "I'll think about it." The next morning, she was gone. Her clothes, her books, even the scarf she always left on the arm of the couch vanished. Ronan stood in the center of the living room, disbelief twisting in his chest. There was no note, no call, just silence. He spent the day calling every number she'd ever given him. Checked the front desk at the hotel. Even pulled up the security footage from the building's private elevator. At 4:30 in the morning, she'd walked out with one suitcase and a cab waiting. He didn't chase her, not this time. Instead, he went to the one place that still felt like hers. The stone house by the Hudson. The air smelled like pine and wet earth, the sky heavy with low clouds. Inside, the lights were off, dust still motes in the air, but the rocking chair in the sunroom had been turned toward the window. He sat in it, waited. 3 days passed. On the 4th day, the door creaked open. He didn't turn. "You left," he said quietly. "I did." She walked inside, the sound of her boots soft on the old floorboards. She stopped behind him, silence stretching. "I panicked," she said. "You offered me calm, and I didn't know what to do with it." He nodded once. "I understand. I've never had anything that wasn't temporary, and you keep offering permanence like it's a gift I won't break." He turned to face her. "Because I'm not afraid of you breaking it. I needed to know if I missed you, if this was just comfort. And I missed you so much I couldn't sleep." He stood, stepped toward her. "Then don't run next time." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the brochure, the same one he'd shown her creased now in new places. "I booked the tickets," she said. "We leave tomorrow." He didn't speak, just pulled her into his arms. The house in Italy was nothing like the penthouse. It was smaller, tucked into a cliffside, with vines curling over the shutters and a narrow path that led to the sea. The roof tiles were chipped, and the kitchen window didn't close all the way, but Arielle had never felt more at peace. They walked to the market every morning, her in sandals and him in rolled-up sleeves, buying bread and figs and fresh basil. No one knew him here. No one cared. He was just Ronan. And she was just the woman who made him laugh over burned coffee and sang off-key while hanging laundry. One night, after a long dinner in the courtyard beneath the olive tree, he poured 2 glasses of limoncello and handed her one. She took it, raised it, then paused. "There's something you haven't asked me." "What's that?" "Why I never married my fiancé." He waited. She rested her chin in her hand. "Because I knew I didn't love him, but I thought maybe that was enough. Safety, familiarity, I thought I could grow into love. And now I know love doesn't wait for permission. It just shows up and dares you to trust it." He looked at her then, the candlelight soft on her face. "Do you?" She nodded. "I trust you." He set down his glass. "I have something for you." She watched as he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small box, no velvet, no gold trim. Just a simple white case. Her breath caught. "You said you've never had anything that lasted," he said. "Let this be the first." He opened the box. Inside was a ring platinum, a single emerald-cut diamond, elegant and understated. She stared at it, then at him. "I don't need an answer now," he said, "but I needed you to know that I'm not going anywhere." She didn't touch the ring. Instead, she reached for his hand, linked their fingers, and said, "Ask me again," out loud. He took her other hand, eyes never leaving hers. Arielle Hayes. "Will you marry me?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They didn't throw a party. No announcements, no press. Instead, they stayed in Italy for another month, planting lemon trees in the back garden and repainting the shutters by hand. They cooked together, danced barefoot in the kitchen, read books with their legs tangled on the couch. When they finally flew back to New York, the world hadn't changed. But they had. At the airport, as they stepped into the waiting car, Arielle looked at him and said, "I want to go back to teaching." He nodded. "Whatever you want. But not full-time. Maybe just a few classes. I want to have time for us. You'll have all the time you need." He didn't return to the hotel as a bellhop, but sometimes, late at night, he'd slip on the uniform and stand at the service elevator just to remember where it all started. One evening, Arielle found him there, leaning on the cart, cap tilted low. "You trying to relive the glory days?" she teased. He grinned. "Just making sure I never forget what it took to find you." She walked up to him, arms looping around his neck. "You didn't find me. I showed up." "Either way," he said, "I'm never letting you go." That night they stood on the rooftop garden again, this time as fiancés watching the city pulse beneath them. No disguises, no lies, just love, real and earned, blooming like the lights below. The villa on the Amalfi Coast had faded into memory, but its stillness lingered in Arielle's bones even now. Weeks later, as she walked through the sunlit courtyard of the Vale Foundation's new education initiative headquarters. The building, a restored brownstone tucked between glass towers in the West Village, smelled of freshly sanded oak and fresh paper. She reached for the key Ronan had given her, unlocking the door to the library space that until recently had been nothing but dust and drafts. The room was warm, filled with sunlight and the scent of lavender from the small potted plant on the window ledge. The floor-to-ceiling shelves were mostly empty, but a few boxes of books had already arrived, labeled in her handwriting. She opened one and began shelving them slowly, running her fingers along the spines of battered classics and newer paperbacks she'd fought to include. It wasn't a school not in the traditional sense, but it was going to be something better. A quiet knock broke the rhythm. She turned as Ronan stepped inside, holding a takeout bag in one hand and a rolled-up folder in the other. "Did I interrupt your sacred alphabetizing ritual?" he asked, setting the bag on the long reading table. "I've only gotten to C," she said. "You're safe." For now, he unwrapped a pair of sandwiches and handed her one. "I figured you forgot to eat again." She took it gratefully. "You figured right." He opened the folder, revealing architectural blueprints. The outdoor classrooms getting fast-tracked. The city approved the zoning change. "It'll be ready before fall." Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" He nodded. "You think I'd let you launch this place without your garden space? I know better." She leaned against the table, sandwich forgotten. "Sometimes I forget you were ever a bellhop." He gave her a look. "Don't bring that up." "I still have PTSD from polishing brass luggage carts," she laughed, and the sound filled the entire room. "What?" he asked, watching her. "You being here, doing this, I think I'm still waiting to wake up." He walked to her, taking her hand, anchoring it between both of his. "Then we'll keep building until it feels real," he said. Later that evening, they returned to the penthouse and curled together on the couch, wrapped in a blanket she insisted on keeping despite its frayed edges. The windows were open, the early spring breeze cool against their skin. She rested her head against his chest while he traced lazy patterns on her arm. "I've been thinking about your mother," she murmured, his hand stilled. "What about her?" "She sounds like she would have loved this place, the way it's filled with art and quiet and books." He nodded slowly. "She would have filled every room with music and made you tea you didn't ask for. She sounds like someone who would have made me feel at home. She would have adored you." A beat of silence passed. "I want to meet your sister," she said. He blinked. "You do? You talk about her like she's your compass. I think it's time." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "She'll love you, but she'll interrogate you first." Arielle smiled. "Good, I could use a challenge." The following weekend, they flew to Boston. Ronan's sister, Lily, met them at a quiet cafe near Beacon Hill. She was tall and graceful, her eyes the exact same shade as Ronan's, but sharper, quicker. "So," Lily said after the polite introductions, "you're the one who cracked my brother open like a walnut." Arielle took a sip of her tea before answering. "I didn't crack him open. He walked out of his shell himself. I just made sure he didn't wander into traffic." Lily stared at her for a moment, then she grinned. "I like her." Over dinner, they talked about everything except money. Arielle learned that Lily was a violinist-turned-therapist, and that Ronan had once tried to skateboard down their childhood driveway and broken both wrists. The laughter came easily, and by the time dessert arrived, Lily reached across the table and squeezed Arielle's hand. "Don't leave him," she said gently. Arielle nodded. "I don't plan to." Back in New York, the days passed quickly. The Vale Foundation program opened quietly, by invitation only, and Arielle began teaching literature and storytelling to students who'd never set foot in a private school. Ronan came to every open house, every student showcase, always in the back, never drawing attention. He let her shine. And every night they returned to each other, tangled in a rhythm that felt like forever. One Thursday, she came home early to find the penthouse unusually quiet. No music, no clinking dishes, no sounds of Ronan pacing on the phone. She set her bag down, called his name, no answer. On the kitchen counter sat a single note in his handwriting, "Come to the rooftop." She took the stairs 2 at a time. When she stepped out, the golden hour light hit her full in the face and she gasped. The rooftop had been transformed. String lights wound through the trellises. A long table stood in the center, covered with white linen and tall candles, flickering gently in the breeze. At the far end, by the edge of the rooftop garden, Ronan stood in a charcoal suit, holding a small box. She froze. He smiled, nervous this time, not sure of her reaction. "I know we're already engaged," he said, walking toward her. "And I know I gave you a ring. But I never really asked you the way I wanted to." Her heart thundered. "I want you to marry me in this city, in the place where it all started. I want you to walk down an aisle we build ourselves and say yes, surrounded by the people who matter. I don't want a quiet, slip-away elopement. I want the world to see us and know we chose each other." She blinked quickly, tears threatening. "So I'm asking again, not because I doubt your answer, but because I want this moment to be yours as much as mine." He dropped to one knee. "Arielle Hayes, will you marry me?" She nodded, tears spilling. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times." He opened the new box. Inside was a second ring, not to replace the first, but to wear with it. A simple band etched with their initials and the date they first kissed on the hotel rooftop. He slid it beside the original diamond, and she pulled him to his feet and kissed him, the city humming around them, the lights below like stars that had fallen just to bear witness. 2 months later, they married in the garden of the Hudson house, the porch rebuilt in wood just as she remembered it. Lily played violin. Miles cried openly in the front row, and Arielle wore a white dress that caught the wind like wings. When the ceremony ended and they stood together under the arch of lemon blossoms and ivy, Ronan whispered, "This is the first day of the only life I ever wanted." She smiled through her tears. "And I'm going to make sure it's never boring." They danced barefoot on the grass, the music soft, the sky turning lavender. Later, they drove back to the city in Ronan's vintage convertible, the wind in her hair, her bare feet on the dash, his hand never leaving hers. Back in the penthouse, the lights were low, the city glimmering below. "You know," she said, curling into him on the couch, "I never thought I'd be in love with a man who once pretended to be a bellhop. And I never thought I'd fall for a woman who made me eat lentils." She laughed, kissed him, and whispered, "Forever starts now," and it did, in laughter. In shared silences, in long walks and quiet mornings and the kind of love that doesn't ask for permission, together they built a life rooted in truth, in passion, in second chances. Not perfect, but theirs, and it was everything.